our very last night, we had to hike out in the dark because they're climbing, right? And this kid is like muttering to himself as we're hiking out in the dark. And his sister's not very happy, and she's like, you need to stop. And I'm like, what are you saying? And he's like, I'm just on an anthill. I'm just on an anthill. And he's like, I can't stop because every time I stop saying it, I start crying again. So, you know. Hey buddies, welcome to Streamside Stories, except today we are not streamside, we are on the river, which is so fun. Today I get to tell you one of my favorite stories from early in my guiding career. This story is about some mosquitoes and some ants and really just the Lord's faithfulness and the surprising ways he shows up. So, setting the scene for you, this is fairly early in my career as a backcountry guide, guiding a backpacking trip that is primarily middle schoolers, but some high schoolers. And we are backpacking somewhere that is known as the mosquito capital of the world. Not actually, but maybe the mosquito capital of Leavenworth. So our first day we're hiking in and we're trying to get to this alpine lake, and the mosquitoes are just getting so bad, like worse and worse and worse everywhere we went. And this kid, I think, had kind of gotten forced to be there by her parents and really did not want to be there and made it very clear. So I got to the point where she's like, I'm not carrying my backpack. And we're like, well, you have to. Like, I can't carry 2 backpacks. And so there's this moment where what we negotiated with her was that she'd carry her pack up one leg of the switch pack. One of us would run down, grab it, scamper up the switchback with her backpack, and then hike up the next leg of the switch back with her and her backpack and our own backpack. And truly, like, it's just hot. The mosquitoes are bad, and she is unhappy. She is not a happy camper. And there's this moment where I'm like, I think we're gonna have to hike her out. Like, I don't think she's gonna be able to complete this trip. And one of our values at Youth Dynamics is this idea of challenge by choice, right? So we're not trying to force people to do things that they find totally miserable, but we think there's a lot of value in challenge also. So we're hiking, we finally get to the lake. Mosquitoes are exactly as bad as you can picture them. Basically the size of small birds, just absolutely everywhere. We're in our full rain gear and mosquito nets, trying not to get just eaten alive. Which is very sweaty when it's like 70 degrees in the mountains of the North Cascades. So overall, not a good time. The student has made it very clear she's not happy, but her leaders are like, no, we think it's worth trying. Like, we can keep her here. So we decide she's gonna stay, and the trip goes on. And there's a lot of not very happy campers on this trip. I would say that the majority of the time that we're hiking, someone was crying. And this is unusual for our trips, right? Like, it's new, it's challenging, but it's not usually like people feel like they're just being forced to do something that they don't want to do. And I don't think that was true for most of these students. Like, I think they genuinely wanted to be there, but it's just a lot harder than they expected. So it's not this like spectacular trip, right? Like, it's one of those trips where I'm just kind of praying that it's gonna be over quickly and that God is gonna give me patience and grace and all the things that I need. So we get to our final lake of the trip, our last night, and this is a lake where we've done some route setting, and so we have some anchors at this backcountry lake so that we can do some backcountry rock climbing, which is really cool. And this student had been really resistant to like trying anything the whole time, and so I just assumed she wasn't gonna want to climb, and that was fine. Like, we're not gonna make anybody climb. But then she started to watch her friends do it, and for whatever reason, like, I think it just looked fun to her. And so in the end, she was like, yeah, I'll climb, I'll try it. We're like, great, if you get up 5 feet, that's awesome, that's a win. And instead, she starts climbing, and all the other kids are gathered around at this point. They're cheering for her, they're encouraging her, and frankly being like probably nicer to her than I might have been if it had been my peer who had been crying so much and just so angsty the whole trip, right? And they're just really like cheering her on. And she keeps climbing. And all of a sudden I look up and she's at the top of the climb and she's crying. And she's not crying because she's afraid. She's crying because she's so proud. And that night, the group leader presented the gospel and just asked students like, hey, if you feel like the Lord is tugging on your heart, if you want to respond to following Jesus, like you should do it. We want to be with you. And this girl raises her hand and says, I want to follow Jesus. If following Jesus makes me like you guys, then I want that for myself. So at this point, I'm the one who's crying, right? And I told you there were some ants. Well, what happened was our very last night, we had to hike out in the dark because they're climbing, right? And this kid is like muttering to himself as we're hiking out in the dark. And his sister's not very happy. And she's like, you need to stop. And I'm like, what are you saying? And he's like, I'm just an ant on an anthill. I'm just an ant on an anthill. And he's like, I can't stop because every time I stop saying it, I start crying again. So, you know, this trip had its highs and lows, but at the very end of the trip, I find this student. She's sitting on a curb, like waiting to say goodbyes after a day of rafting. And she's crying again. I'm like, hey, like, everything okay? Like, what's going on? And she tells me, I don't want to leave because this has been the best week of my life. At this point, I'm crying again. So I think as I just think about this moment, right, like I had a pretty particular idea in my mind of what God was willing or able to do in that moment and what was going to happen with a student. And I kind of just resigned myself to it being hard. And instead, the Lord surprised us and it ended up being really beautiful. And I've gotten to see that student again and still following the Lord. And I'm just really thankful that the Lord reminded me so early that it might not turn out how I expect, and that's a good thing.
Thanks for joining us for Streamside Stories. Click the link to subscribe and join us for more stories and virtual adventures. This isn't the only way we want to adventure together, though. We also want to invite you to come join us for an adventure and create some stories of your own. To do so, head to www.yd.org to connect with us and our bases to start your journey today. Thanks.